My son-in-law had me sign papers I didn't fully understand. That was my first mistake. My second mistake was trusting that my daughter knew what she was doing when she handed me that envelope and said, "Dad, just sign it." But when I finally opened that old shoebox my son left on my doorstep, the one he told me to throw away, I found something that changed everything. And the note tucked inside it? I still can't read it without my hands shaking. Let me take you back to where this all began. My name is Walter. I'm 67 years old. I spent 31 years working as a civil engineer for the county. I built bridges, literally. I know how to measure load-bearing weight, how to calculate stress fractures, how to tell when something is about to collapse. But I could not see, not for a single moment, that the structure of my own family was crumbling right beneath my feet. My wife, Carol, passed 8 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. 41 days from diagnosis to the end. We didn't even have time to say everything we needed to say. She was the one who held our family together. She always said our youngest, Marcus, was the quiet one, but the most like her. She said he saw everything, he just chose his moments carefully. I used to think that was her way of explaining why he didn't talk much. Now I think she was warning me. After Carol passed, I kept the house. Our house. A 4-bedroom colonial on Sycamore Lane in Greenfield, Ohio. Carol and I bought it in 1989 for $114,000. By the time any of this happened, it was worth close to $800,000. The neighborhood had grown up around us. The old feed store became a coffee shop. The empty lot across the street became a medical complex. We stayed put while everything changed, and without meaning to, we became valuable. My older son, Derek, moved back in about 2 years after Carol died. He said he needed to regroup. He'd just gone through a divorce and his restaurant had closed. He was 41 and sleeping in his childhood bedroom, which I told myself was fine. He was my son. That's what you do. Then he met Claudia. Claudia came into his life like a weather system, fast, loud, and impossible to ignore. Within 6 months, she was at every dinner. Within a year, she had a key. Within 18 months, Derek sat me down at the kitchen table, right where Carol used to grade her students' papers, and told me he wanted to refinance the house. "Dad," he said, "the interest rates are good right now. We could pull some equity, pay off some things, invest a little. It's smart." I told him I needed to think about it. He came back 3 more times over the next month with different versions of the same conversation. Each time Claudia was there. Each time she had printed materials, spreadsheets, highlighted sections of mortgage documents. She was a paralegal, Derek told me. She understood these things better than either of us. "I want to be honest with you about something. I am not a foolish man. I built infrastructure that still stands in 3 counties. But grief does something to your confidence. After Carol died, I second-guessed myself constantly. Small things. Did I lock the door? Did I take my medication? Should I have pushed for a second opinion? That fog of uncertainty. Claudia walked right through it like she owned the place. My daughter, Renee, lived 40 minutes away in Columbus with her husband and 2 kids. She called twice a week. Came for holidays, sent cards on my birthday. She was a good daughter in the way that busy mothers with full-time jobs and school pickups can be. Present but stretched thin. My youngest, Marcus, lived in Portland. He worked in software, something to do with data security. He was quiet on family calls, asked careful questions, and always seemed to be paying attention to the wrong thing. Meaning the thing nobody else was paying attention to. The refinancing happened in the spring. I signed documents at Derek's kitchen table. By then, he and Claudia had converted the dining room into a home office for her. I remember the stack of papers was almost 2 inches thick. Claudia walked me through it page by page. She was patient. She used simple language. She smiled at all the right moments. I signed. What I did not understand, not fully, was that buried in that refinancing was a quitclaim deed that transferred 50% ownership of the house to Derek. Claudia explained it as a formality, something about the loan structure. She said it was standard. It was not standard. 3 months later, Derek came to me again. This time he said the loan terms had changed, something with the lender, and that for the refinancing to stay viable, I needed to transfer the remaining ownership to him temporarily. Just temporarily. He would transfer it back within the year. He showed me a letter. It looked official. It had a logo and a phone number at the bottom. I called the number once. It went to voicemail. A man's voice said to leave a message. I left one. Nobody called back. I told Derek, and he said the lender was handling high volume, not to worry. I signed again. I want to stop here and ask you something. Has anyone ever made you feel like your hesitation was the problem? Like your questions were the burden? That's what was happening to me, and I couldn't see it because Derek was my son. My son. The boy Carol and I drove to baseball practice every Saturday for 6 years. The boy who cried at his mother's funeral and held my hand during the graveside prayer. How do you hold both of those images at the same time? You don't. That's the answer. You can't. So you choose the one that lets you sleep. By October of that year, my name was no longer on the deed to my own home. I didn't know that immediately. I found out in stages, the way you find out about most devastating things. First a small question, then an uneasy feeling, then a fact you can't unknow. It started when I called my insurance company about updating the homeowner's policy. The woman on the phone asked me to confirm ownership. She put me on hold. When she came back, she said my name did not appear on the current deed. She gave me a number for the county recorder's office. I sat in Carol's old chair in the living room for a long time after that call. The afternoon light came through the curtains the way it always did, landing on the same patch of floor it had landed on for 30 years. Nothing looked different. Everything was different. I called Renee. She came over the next evening. I showed her the documents I had, what I could find. She went quiet in the way that Renee goes quiet when she's trying not to say what she's actually thinking. Then she said, "Dad, I think you need to talk to a real estate attorney. Not Derek's attorney, your own." I asked her if she'd known anything about this. She looked at me with her mother's eyes, Carol's eyes, and said, "I knew he was trying to help you with some paperwork. He told me you asked him to." I had not asked him to. I hired an attorney. Her name was Patricia Holt. She was 62, direct as a nail gun, and within 48 hours she told me what had happened. Derek had transferred sole ownership of the house to himself. The quitclaim deeds were legal because I had signed them. The process had been designed to look gradual, low stakes, administrative. She used the word predatory. She said it calmly, the way doctors say hard words, like the calmness is a kindness. When I confronted Derek, Claudia was there. Of course she was. Derek said I was confused. He said I had agreed to all of it. He said the stress of living alone had affected my memory, and that he and Claudia had actually been considering whether I needed a more structured living situation. He said this gently. Claudia nodded along. A more structured living situation. That phrase hit me somewhere behind the sternum, because I knew what it meant. It meant they had a next step already planned. I left that conversation and sat in my truck in the driveway. My driveway, the one I'd sealed and repaired every 3 years for 30 years, and I called Marcus. He answered on the second ring. I told him everything. He didn't interrupt. He didn't react the way Renee had reacted, with visible emotion and scrambling energy. He was quiet through most of it. When I finished, he said, "Dad, how long ago did you sign the second document?" I told him. He said, "Okay." Just okay. Then he said, "Don't sign anything else. Don't talk to Derek without your attorney present. And Dad, don't tell Derek you called me." I asked him why. He said, "Because I've been watching this for 8 months and I need 2 more weeks." I didn't know what to say to that, so I said, "Okay, son." Those were the longest 2 weeks of my life. I went through the motions of my days. I made coffee in the morning in the kitchen that might not be mine anymore. I watched the news. I took my walks. I went to my Thursday morning men's group at the church, and I sat in the circle and I listened to other men talk about their struggles, and I did not say a word about mine because I didn't have language for it yet. Derek and Claudia began making changes to the house. Small things at first. Claudia replaced the mat at the front door. She bought new dish towels. She rearranged the pantry and said she was organizing it for me more efficiently. I watched her hands move my things around, and I thought about Carol arranging that same pantry, and I held very still. Then Derek told me they wanted to convert my bedroom into a proper home office, and that there was a lovely room in an assisted living facility 20 minutes away that he'd already toured. "Just to look," he said. "Just so we know our options." I said I would think about it. That night I sat on the edge of the bed Carol and I had shared for 33 years, and I thought about her. I thought about what she said about Marcus, that he saw everything. He just chose his moments. I thought about 2 more weeks. I thought about what it means to trust someone you haven't always understood. I decided to trust him. 11 days later, on a Thursday afternoon, I came home from my walk to find a shoebox on the front porch. It had my name on it in Marcus's handwriting. There was no return address. Just, "Dad. Open alone." I took it inside. I sat at the kitchen table. I opened it. Inside was a hard drive, a folder of printed documents, and an envelope with my name on it. I opened the envelope first. The letter was 3 pages, handwritten, in Marcus's careful small script. I'm going to share some of what he wrote with you because I think it matters. He wrote, "Dad, I started looking into this 8 months ago when Derek mentioned the refinancing on a family call, and something didn't sound right to me. I work in data security. I know what it looks like when information is being managed instead of shared, so I started paying attention." He wrote, "I found the quitclaim deeds in the county recorder's database. I found the LLC that Claudia had registered 6 weeks before you signed the first document, the one that would have received the property if they'd completed the next step. I found the listing she'd drafted on a real estate investment platform for the house, marked pending." He wrote, "The hard drive contains everything: dates, documents, correspondence. Your attorney will know what to do with it." He wrote, "Dad, I know you felt like I wasn't present. I know I'm the one who moved farthest away and called the least and showed up the least. I have thought about that every day. I want you to know I was always paying attention to you. I just didn't always know how to say it. Mom would have known how. I'm still learning." He wrote, "I love you. I'm sorry it took me this long to show you." I sat at that table for a long time. Then I called Patricia Holt. What followed was not simple or fast. Legal proceedings rarely are. But what Marcus had documented was thorough enough that Patricia described it as unusually complete. The evidence showed a coordinated effort to transfer ownership of the property through a series of documents designed to appear routine, with the end goal of selling the property through Claudia's LLC and splitting the proceeds, approximately $780,000 at current market value, without my knowledge or involvement. The county prosecutor got involved. Elder financial abuse carries serious weight in Ohio. Derek and Claudia both retained attorneys. There were months of proceedings. Throughout all of it, Renee was by my side. Once she understood what had actually happened, not the version Derek had given her, but the documented version, something shifted in her. She became fierce in the way that mothers of young children become fierce when something threatens their understanding of safety. She came to every meeting with Patricia. She took notes. She made calls. She was, as Carol would have said, something to see. Derek pled guilty to 1 count of financial exploitation of an elderly person and 1 count of deed fraud. He was sentenced to 4 years in state prison, with 3 years of supervised release following. Claudia, who had been the architect of most of the scheme, received 7 years. The house was returned to me. I want to be careful here about how I describe what happened with Derek, because he is still my son. Carol loved him. I love him. Those things don't stop being true because something terrible is also true. But I will say this. When I sat across from him in that courtroom and he looked at me, finally, without Claudia beside him, he looked young, younger than I'd seen him look in years, like the 41-year-old man had slipped away, and underneath was the boy who cried at his mother's funeral. And I thought, you had everything. You had a home and a father and a family and a second chance, and you let her talk you into throwing it away. I don't know what I'll say to him when he gets out. I have years to think about it. Marcus flew in for the final court date. He stayed for 2 weeks. We didn't talk a lot about what he'd done. That's not how Marcus communicates. We drank coffee in the morning. We walked the neighborhood. One afternoon we sat on the back porch where Carol used to garden, and I told him about the bridge I was most proud of designing, a pedestrian overpass in Franklin County that's been standing for 22 years. I told him what makes a bridge last isn't just the materials. It's understanding where the stress will be, building for the weight you can't always see coming. He listened to all of it. Then he said, "Mom always said you understood structure better than anyone." I had to look away for a minute. Before he left for Portland, he hugged me at the front door. It was not something we did often. Our family was not demonstrative except for Carol, who hugged everyone. But he held on for a moment longer than necessary, and I let him. I'm still in the house on Sycamore Lane. The pantry is back the way Carol had it. The mat at the front door is the one Marcus picked out at the hardware store before he flew back, gray, with a simple border. Nothing fancy, just right. Some nights I sit in Carol's chair and I think about what it means to be seen by someone who doesn't know how to tell you they see you. Marcus couldn't give me words for most of his life. He gave me something else instead. 8 months of attention, a shoebox on a porch, 3 handwritten pages. I think about the men in my Thursday group who talk about feeling invisible in their own families. I think about how many of them might have someone who sees them, who is just like Marcus, still learning how to say it. I chose to stay. I chose to fight for this house and this life. Not because of the money, though I want to be honest. Nearly losing $780,000 at 67 years old is not a small thing, but because Carol and I built something on Sycamore Lane. 33 years of ordinary Tuesdays and hard winters and a garden that came back every spring. That's not nothing. That's not something you hand over because someone smiled at all the right moments. If you're watching this and something feels wrong, with a document, with a conversation, with a person who seems to be managing your information instead of sharing it, trust that feeling. Call your own attorney, not theirs. Call the child who's been quiet. Call the one who sees everything and chooses their moments carefully. And if you have a parent who is aging, who lives alone, who maybe seems a little uncertain in ways they didn't used to be, pay attention. You don't have to have the right words. You just have to keep watching. That might be enough to save everything.